It always takes a second, just to. All right. All right,
7:01, I will call the library board to order. We can do roll call.
all right. Chair Marie Hoda.
Here.
Vice Chair Andy Sakaris.
Here.
Maggie Burns.
Here.
Scott Gilbert.
Here.
Edie Hughes.
Here.
Gina Olberding.
Here.
Dina Phelps.
Here.
Amy Wilson.
Here.
And we have Inglewood School Liaison Dwayne Tucker.
Here.
Excused, we have City Council Member Chelsea Noonenkamp. And staff, we have Director Christina Underhill and Library and Cultural Arts Manager Bethany Lafferty. Right, thank you.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Perfect, that passes. We don't have public comment from you, so we can move on for reports. Okay. Highlights from the library report. I wanted to point out that the Culture Pass use is continuing to increase. For the month of May, we had 77. Passes checked out. And the highest number of passes was for the Denver Botanic Gardens with 23. And then Denver Museum of Nature and Science was 22. And Butterfly Pavilion was 18. And then there was anywhere from 1 to 4 of all of the others. All of them. Oh, actually, there was just nine different institutions. The only one that didn't have any passes used was from the Dolls and Miniatures. Hoopla, I wanted to just make a quick mention about the decrease in Hoopla usage for May. At the end of May, we did institute a residency restriction for Hoopla usage. Which basically means Englewood Public Library cardholders who are also residents will have full access to Hoopla. For many, many months, we were seeing the full cap hitting for the month, but not only that, but on each day, the daily cap was sometimes being hit as early as 3:30 in the afternoon. So that means for the remainder of the day, from 3:30 till 11:59 PM, nobody could check out Hoopla content. A large number of our Hoopla users are Denver residents or other residents outside of Englewood. The Denver Public Library does not offer Hoopla services. So its residents rely on surrounding libraries to access Hoopla. And the Englewood Public Library is a small library with minimal budget for that service, so we are prioritizing its use. So you will see there's a decrease already in May because we instituted this, I think, on like the 24th of May. And then for the month of June, there'll be a decrease as well. Because we're using it for just Englewood residents. We're hoping to do some more advertisement of it so that residents will kind of remember about it, because we've had lots of people that would say, every time I try to get Hoopla, I can't ever get anything, and then they stop using it. So we want to try to revisit promoting it to Englewood residents so we can get that usage back up. And then whatever kind of funds that we earmarked for Hoopla that we don't end up using, we will put into Libby by Overdrive, which is our other downloadable resource. And that is one where the library staff selects the content. The Hoopla content is predetermined by Hoopla. So just wanted to kind of give you an update about that. Volunteer hours, we did have 19 volunteering over the first 2 days of the summer reading program for a total of 22 hours. So that was really great. Today was our first day of adult volunteers. So I think our volunteer number will be even greater for the month of June. Plus there's 6, 7 teens volunteering every day, Monday through Thursday. I don't think they do any teens on Friday, so just Monday through Thursday, they have the teens basically between 9:30 and 5. The outreach numbers for the children's programs, there was 60 events attended by library staff with a little over 1,800 participants. This does include the Celebrate Englewood event that several of you volunteered at, and that was approximately 350 people who interacted with at least the libraries. That also includes summer reading promotion visits to the schools. Kimberly visited 52 classrooms, with just over 1,000 students total. And then in the outreach programs for the teen or for young adult, that was all classroom visits to promote summer reading. So it's 15 classroom visits with 250 students. And then just a side note on summer reading, as of June 4th, there were 291 kids signed up, kids and teens registered. 42% of those were from Inglewood Public Schools. And the adult summer reading program was at 53. And I mean, obviously since then it has increased in the last a little over a week. So both of them are increasing each week participation. Any particular questions about anything else in the statistical report?
I have a question on the difference year to date, I'm sorry, year over year, but for physical visitors and the Facebook reach.
Okay. So visitors, remember, everything was
Right,
doubled
that
last
was- yeah.
year. So that would be approximately,
So it would work up to like 76-20 if it counted the old way. Because, yeah, I was thinking that, I mean, it's still, even taking that into account, yeah, it's down pretty sharply.
there are 5 fewer days.
Mhm.
Oh, no, 5 more. There's 5 more this year. The other thing I will tell you is, one of the things that I observed was because we had the 2 entrances,
Right.
a lot of in and out, people in and out all day long, same people over and
Okay.
over again. I don't think we have that kind of just like frantic in and out traffic of some of the unhoused folks that we were seeing before. So with one entrance, it's like people come in and then they just stay in.
Yeah.
Or they leave and then they don't come back quite as rapidly.
Okay.
The library is also not used as a first floor hallway from the garage to the circle. Because people would, or vice versa, people would just walk through
Right.
and they weren't even staying in the library. They were, and I think even staff used the library as sort of like city staff used it sort of as like a hallway to just get from one side to the other. And now, because we don't allow any of the city staff to go out that north door,
Right.
like unless it's absolutely necessary. So I think that kind of is a little bit of an explanation for some of that, discrepancy.
Okay.
Wasn't rain every day. It's nice.
Yeah.
Keep people home.
Yeah.
On Facebook, are we just like unpopular or what?
I mean, I think we're still kind of struggling with like, kind of a personality, if you will,
Yeah.
on social media. Like we share all of our events, we try to put out announcements. But I don't think we really have like a good sense of like, what is sort of the personality we're trying to present in our online presence. We still just really don't have a handle on what that is. And so I think that's where that's at. And I don't really know. I have no idea. I honestly should go back and look at the Facebook insights and make sure that those were the numbers back then, because I don't know. There wasn't anybody doing it when I started, so I don't know how there was that much activity on the Facebook
Good
page.
question. Yeah.
So I don't know. But I don't really have a good answer for you on that. I apologize, but.
Are
I
you
do
doing,
know
are
we're
you getting
mostly
paid?
using it. I'm
Are you
sorry,
doing any paid?
paid ones, no. And that might have been, maybe they were paying to boost posts before. I don't know. And there's not really a reason we're not boosting them, but I don't know. We don't have well, I guess have an advertising budget, I guess, that could come out of it. So we could, I just,
I mean, if it,
most of the stuff that we're putting up there are just like the program events. And then some announcements here and there, and sometimes there's like a post after the fact of like the children's programs and some of the adult programs, so,
I've been putting a lot of the children's programs up lately and
yeah,
yeah, you have to be careful with this, obviously.
yeah. So,
thank you.
Anyone else? Action plan.
so the action plan. Update in, yeah, this was a volunteer program. So the May update for volunteer program was that we had the initial volunteer orientation. There was 12 new adult volunteers who attended. And then the schedules for the actual volunteers began actually today. So there are, those 12 people are kind of spread out across the week. And we had our first volunteer this afternoon, which everything went really well. The initial projects that the volunteers will focus on include cleaning books and shelves and shelving recently returned materials, sorting materials, kind of in the back return area before shelving. And then, oh no, that's actually the sorting materials and creating space for the book sale. So we actually have a large donation of books that happened over a few years ago that have just been sitting in one of the offices and they're just in boxes. So that's one of the first kind of book sale preparation projects we'll do, is sorting through those materials, separating out, children's materials from adult, and kind of divvying up between fiction and nonfiction, and then reboxing them in categories so that they're ready for when we hold our first book sale, which is tentatively scheduled for late August or early September.
Is it from like the bookstore that came or
Kim really doesn't even really remember what it was from. Because I think it was before COVID, and then there wasn't any real instruction about what to do with it. It was just like either like a homeschool group was like disbanding, or I don't really remember. But it does have like a lot of classics. And then some like nonfiction books about like cooking and gardening and stuff. And then there was a lot of different kids' books in there too. So it's definitely about at least 15 to 20 boxes worth of books. And then we're also going to kind of see based on their condition, what they look like, if anything's updated, stuff like that. And then we'll do like a kind of a call for community donations about 6 weeks prior to when we'll schedule the book sale. It's probably gonna be after Labor Day, I think, like maybe that first, I guess that second weekend in September, so like the weekend after Labor Day is what I'm thinking. And the plan is to hold it, I gotta talk to the city, in the north lobby, and it will be there from Friday to Monday. Yeah, so we'll have it during the open hours of the library, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then we'll have Monday, will be a $5 bag sale. So whatever you can fit in a provided bag for $5. Then everything else will be donated to Dreambooks. And we'll start all over again with a new batch. So that's the volunteer program.
And what was the money?
Oh, yeah, thank you. The proceeds for this first book sale will all go back into, they'll all be considered donations, go into our donors fund and be earmarked for the 2024 summer reading program for children and adults. That'll be kind of hopefully like a promotional point to draw people to come in to like, hey, support 2024 summer reading, visit the Englewood Public Library. Culture passes, we're pretty much up and fully running with the culture passes. All 10 institutions are now available on the site, and can be checked out. It defaults to like a 3-day, stretch that you can look at, but you can change how many days you're looking at in terms of, what available dates you want to look at. I think it allows you to go at least 30 days out, if not more. So that's going really well, and then the staff are still continuing to work on the other non-traditional items.
The library will close in 15 minutes. Please bring your items to circulation for checkout at this time.
The public restrooms are now closed for the evening. Public computers will shut down in 5 minutes. Please save or print your work now.
Um, The other non-traditional items, the book, club kits, storytime bins. We are reading the book club kits and acquiring some new ones. We have to inventory all the book club kits and then enter everything. So that's still taking a little bit of time. And then we're going to be adding the board games and a few homeschool kits that Kimberly has. So we're kind of waiting to just get it all done and so that we can kind of, launch all the different parts at once. So that's what we're still working on finishing up with that. And the partnership with Englewood Public Schools, like I mentioned, Kimberly did do a lot of, school visits to all the different schools. The biggest update is that, I've been working with the Marmot Library Network, and they've confirmed that the last upload of student information from the schools was in January 2023, so that was still, that whole process was still happening. That was, begun in 2019. So they were still updating that. We just haven't really been keeping up with making sure, students and teachers know how to use them. I'm currently working with, somebody at Marmot, because since the implementation of passwords, I have to figure out how does that impact the student access? So I'm currently working on that aspect of it and making sure that we can have like a simple solution to password requirements for the students. And then I've been in touch with Joanna at the school district and she's now connected me with Paul Whitaker, who is it's like the STEM principal or something like that. I don't know if we can connect, correct me if I'm wrong. I forgot what he said his position is. Just,
Digital literacy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's the one that has been doing the, updates to Marmot. So he'll continue to do that, but we are gonna work to have a more frequent update, so not just twice a year, but hopefully quarterly, so that we're always getting the most current student information updated. And then students will have access to all of the online databases. And I'm in the process of converting, well, not really converting, but implementing what's called Sora by Overdrive. So that's the student Libby version, basically, where it kind of pulls age-appropriate titles out of your Libby collection and makes it available for students in this different interface that Overdrive calls Sora. It does not cost anything extra for us to implement Sora. It's just like an add-on or an extension of Overdrive. So that's going to be really easy to implement. And then the content is just whatever we already have in our Libby catalog. The only thing I have to confirm with Overdrive is whether it's only the Englewood Public Library acquired titles, or is it the full catalog of Marmot Libby titles? Because the consortium kind of shares all the consortium members shares its Libby catalog, if that makes sense. So I just want to confirm that with the rep from Overdrive, and then we'll be moving forward with getting that set up and then testing it out with the student accounts. And then implementing that. And then I'm also talking with Joanna at the schools about setting up some instruction for teachers. And she needs a little bit more detail about like what it is that we want to present to teachers. And that will kind of help her guide us to the right content. So that's my kind of next step with that element. And then possibly doing some classroom instruction after the school year starts to provide directly to some of the students, probably in the upper grades, or using the research database.
Is Sora only, like, you have to have the school ID to get into that, or could any family also?
So it'll only be specific for school use.
Got it.
Yeah. And that's the other thing too, so that we'll be discontinuing the catalog of items in Access 360, but I'm currently doing a review of that right now for focusing on the children and teens titles in Access 360 to make sure that those are going to still be available in Overdrive. A lot of them we also have in Hoopla, Some of them we only have in Hoopla, so the ones that we don't have in Overdrive will probably add if they're still available. Because Hoopla will require a separate library card, for access, because there won't be, that kind of content control that the school is looking for that. So, and with the student ID, like accounts, they won't be able to access Hoopla because of the residency restriction, because those cards are like a specific setup that aren't like the full access, so it wouldn't allow them to access Hoopla. And then potentially be checking out materials that are outside the scope of what the school would want to be promoting to their students and things like that. So it kind of takes that worry away from kind of the more controlled collection content that schools want to present. So if students want Hoopla, their parents have to come with them and get them up. So that's all going along pretty well. I feel like we'll easily have all of this stuff in place before the school year starts. And I didn't really have, I did have something new for, I didn't have anything new for staff development. We do have our first in-service, like our real in-service this Friday. So the library will be closed this Friday. We'll be doing a staff in-service. We have a lot of new team members, so we'll be kind of reviewing some of the training that they did in their first few months, and then updating some areas that we've changed because, you know, like the Hoopla change, we've updated the online registration for new accounts and kind of what that process needs to look like. And then just kind of some housekeeping stuff. And then they'll have time to work on special projects within their respective teams. Yeah, and then the last bit about library marketing, the thing I've been focusing on is creating like a baseline usage number of all of our databases. Because I recently cleaned up all the database links and things like that, made sure that they all have the correct authentication, like if you're accessing from outside of the library, you have to put in your library card number and password. And some of those didn't have the right things set up or didn't have any at all. And I got all that updated, and some of the content descriptions I'm in the process of updating. I also recently renewed a subscription to Colorado Grants Guide, because that had temporarily been unavailable to all libraries because the organization that runs it completely revamped the website. So that was all brand new, and you had to initiate a subscription. So that's available for in-library use only, and a staff member will log a person into that database to do searching. Because it doesn't quite work the way the library vendor things work, where you can use your library card to get into it. It is kind of like a one user login. So the staff would log a person in for that usage, but they do have a special subscription rate for the public libraries, so it's a bit cheaper than if you were to subscribe and grow. So I'm working on that and collecting all that usage from the past year to kind of create this baseline usage numbers, and then I'm working on a marketing plan for promoting the various databases, kind of focusing on just kind of general learning, the first part. Then as we get closer to kind of like the school year, promoting more of the academic type databases that would apply to like high school students, you know, college students, and then doing a push with the schools as well as directly to library card holders for the youth focused databases in about September, October. So that's like the loose plan. All of our vendor providers for databases do design kind of like template letters or newsletter type content, as well as social media content that we'll customize to our library, and that's what we'll be promotion. And then after about 6 months, I'm gonna look
The
at.
library will close in 5 minutes. Please finish your work and head toward the exit. Thank you.
If we see that the usage is not significantly increasing, we may consider dropping some of the items we have and reinvesting that money into other online databases that are for digital content like the downloadables.
Do we track Libby search?
That's,
Is there what's overdrive is?
yeah, that's what overdrive is, yeah. Cool. That's the, yeah, so that's the Libby usage.
Okay, cool.
It used to be, so like the company is called Overdrive, and then it was like implemented as Overdrive, but then they created the Libby app.
Okay.
And they discontinued the original Overdrive interface, if that makes sense.
Crystal clear.
Because Libby is a much more user-friendly app,
Yeah, perfect.
but that's, yeah, that's what Overdrive is.
Any questions on the action plan? Anyone? On to new business, which is discussion and possible vote of approval on lot size policy.
So I first want to start out by saying the collection development policy, the general one, was a group effort by technical services librarian Celine Gardner, collection development specialist Matt Broadus, myself, and then patron experience librarian Carrie Watson, like the four, and Matt really did the first draft of it. So he did a lot of work on it. It really tied in well with what he was doing for training in his new position. So he was kind of already doing some research for some online courses he was doing that was specific to his work. And that really informed a lot of the detail in here. And then we kind of just, as a group, went through it a couple times and fleshed things out. So, the main purpose of having the policy is to, have a public statement about how the library approaches collecting materials, because we can't own everything, so we have to prioritize, and this kind of establishes, the community that we serve, information about that, and then, how we inform ourselves about materials that are out there and then make decisions about what to order. I'm not gonna read through the entire thing. We do make sure that we cite that the library wants to adhere to the freedom to read, hear, and view as protected by the First Amendment. So there is a specific statement that says the Englewood Public Library and the Public Library Board supports intellectual freedom and subscribes to the American Library Association's Library Bill of Rights and Freedom to Read statement. So both of those things like that are highlighted in blue, those are hyperlinks to American Library Association sites that contain that information. What else is in here? I wanted to highlight. So we have the list of criteria for what we take into consideration when selecting items to purchase. There's also a list of criteria that are used for when we decide to remove materials from the collection. And then the types of things that we don't collect at all. So we're not buying textbooks or highly specialized genealogy materials, and we're not purchasing rare books. Some of those things might come in from the patron recommendation or materials requests, and then we just have kind of a form email that responds and says that this is outside the scope of our collection. Things like that. We also will sometimes have to reject patron requests when the materials are out of print. There are some, I recently had a patron ask about a specific book for their child, but it was originally published in 1976. It's not available in print anymore. It was not like a highly popular book that continued to be in print, but it is available in downloadable format. So I was explaining to the parent how they can do that. So sometimes if it's available in an electronic format, we'll try to choose that route if a physical item is not available anymore, because we won't purchase used highly priced items like off of Amazon or something like that, because we're not trying to purchase. That's how people might treat them in a resale situation like that. And then we also outlined how we, dispose of materials that are taken out of the collection. And then the last section is the reconsideration of materials, and that is, allows, a patron who is a City of Englewood resident, to request that an item be, reviewed for either relocation.
The library and civic center are now closed. Please exit the building. We will reopen tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. Thank you.
Request to move something from like, say, young adult collection to the adult collection, or they're, have a reason that they don't think the library should own the item at all. So that process is outlined in that last section. The underlying part that says request for reconsideration form, that will be, when we post this on the library website, that will actually be a link to the form that's also included in the list of items to discuss this evening.
Will you also be able to submit the form online?
No, you will not. It has to be printed and filled out. And it has to be so we didn't necessarily give it very clear in here and kind of on purpose, because we do say that the form should be turned into a library staff member. We didn't say it has to be in person, but we didn't offer that it could be via email. Either, but like if somebody did ask, I filled this out, could I email it to you? We would allow that. But we really want to make sure that people are taking the time to complete the form, and only a form that's entirely completed will be considered. If there's anything missing, you know, because these will come to me, I would go back to the person and say, hey, you didn't complete this part. Would you like me to send this back to you for your completion, or can you send me an email out answering these questions of the form? Because we really are not trying to just create a platform for people to challenge things willy-nilly. Like, we want them to be thoughtful about it and have very specific, purposeful reasons for challenging materials, because everything in the public library should be considered appropriate, because we purchase for a wide variety of interests and reading levels and just opinions and perspectives, and we try to accommodate all of those with the materials that are available. So I don't want to get too far ahead of myself and get into, so like if anybody has questions about the collection development policy, then we can work our way forward.
Well, I mean, it's a minor, I was just curious. I actually have more questions about the deselection process or whatever. I was just curious, what would be an example of something deselected for irrelevance? If you can think of something that's been gotten rid of for irrelevance to the patron.
And a lot of that would be informed by the lack of circulation. So say we were purchasing, like, kind of DIY books on home plumbing or auto mechanics and stuff like that, and nobody was really checking those out, then that kind of sends the message that this is not something that this community wants or needs to use.
It's all one.
Yeah, so that would be an example, is if we're just seeing that there are things that people don't seem to be interested in this type of material, then that would inform us over time, hey, like these books on, you know, DIY plumbing, nobody wants to read it, so we're gonna start withdrawing these, and we're not gonna collect nearly as many. It's like, maybe we used to have like 10, now we're only gonna have 3.
I try to ask some questions of reconsideration, but I don't know if anybody else can.
Are these brand new policies, or are you just updated?
So this one is an update, of a very thorough update of the policy that is currently on the library's website.
Okay, because that was the one thing, I guess, and I'm not someone who writes policy, and congratulations to your team for pulling it together, because I learned a lot. Thank you. I mean, I really did. I really enjoyed actually reading these. But it didn't say anywhere here like updated this date or something. What updated? But
That will be updated once a final decision is kind of agreed upon by this
Yeah,
group.
gotcha. Okay.
So that will be included in the final version that we post online.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because the last collection development policy that's on the website, I think was from 2011. Everything is about 2011, maybe 2013.
Yeah. Well, I was happy to see that you specifically addressed, the freedom to read and that kind of thing, because I was curious, like, I'm embarrassed to be on board, I don't know the answer to this, so now I know it. But what the library's policy was on in that way, but I like that you referred to two things that would be reputable sources, so a person could read
Right.
more about that. That makes me feel better to like see that in there.
Yeah,
So
and
that's
like that kind of stuff wasn't necessarily addressed previously, in terms of the freedom to read, at least not as thoroughly. Yeah, it was very basic. I mean, I'm not
Well,
knocking it. It's just, yeah, it was from August 14, 2011 was the last approval of the collection development.
I don't think that topic was maybe as relevant then. I mean, it's been really surfaced in the last year or two, you're right, so.
I think that the point here is very much to like prohibit our city from being attacked by.
Yeah. And then I just had another basic question. How often would you get someone who is asking to have new material or have something, or
Oh,
donate
we get
something?
patron requests really frequently.
We do.
So there is, and that's in the patron recommendations / materials request, there is that hyperlink that says request a title. So that will link to the library's catalog page where you can fill out like your name and email and the title that you're requesting. And if you want it put on hold, I think is an option in there too. And then some of the requests are kind of more informal. We're just talking with patrons and they're asking for titles. And if we don't have a copy or, it's not a new book, but it's not like super old and there's only a few copies, say, available in the market consortium and we don't have one, that's something that can be relayed back to Matt, our collection development specialist, and say, hey, I've had a couple of people ask for this book. You can look into it and see if it would be appropriate for purchase for our collection. So sometimes it's a little bit informal based on staff interactions with patrons, and then sometimes direct patrons are saying, hey, can you make sure you order this? Or they're asking for titles that are older that we may not have purchased before. And there's not that many copies available, and it does fit in with kind of our selection criteria.
I've done several pre-orders like as well.
And that's, yeah, I think
That's a good way to support.
yeah, that's and a lot of things that's great about when people submit like the request of a title that's forthcoming. It helps Matt know that there's gonna be a demand for that title when we purchase it. And so he does do a lot of new release selection. Because it's going to there's gonna probably be some demand from some community, but we do really prioritize what our immediate community members are requesting. So there definitely is a lot that comes through that. I don't have an exact percentage, but there's definitely several a week. I think they place at least one order a week.
On the rare books thing, the rare books, do you have people saying, I have a rare book?
Sometimes. Yeah, and that's why we have the separate collection policy for the archive. Because if somebody wanted to donate something, and I guess it depends what it is, if it was like a first edition famous author, we're not necessarily gonna put that in the archive, because that doesn't have local historical relevance. But if somebody were to donate like a valuable item, we would probably utilize it, not in the collection, but as like an item to sell.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, so it would be more like that, but I wouldn't necessarily be looking for that kind of stuff. Like in trying to solicit that type of donation. If we happen to find something that somebody didn't know was, rare and valuable. I'm not sure exactly what we will do with it at this point, but, a couple options would be to have like a separate, sale of kind of like unique and antiquarian titles, something like that, where we might sell them for $25 or, something like that. Or we might have to try to hang on to them until we can come up with another venue for doing that. I don't know, because I wouldn't necessarily put that just randomly in a book sale. Sell it for $1 when I know that it's way more valuable than that. So that's something that I'll probably have to kind of like address as it might come up.
Yeah, I mean, I think with that is, there's a number of rare book resellers on Broadway, and it may be worth a partnership of,
Right.
having someone come in,
Right,
so you're not
exactly.
putting a
something like
$1,000 book in a, $5 book sale.
Right.
Not to say it's gonna happen a lot, but, I think,
And we're just not in a position to, especially without a friends group, I'm not gonna try to start like an Amazon bookstore or something like that. The library I was at previously, the Friends of the Library had an Amazon bookstore, so they sold some of their more valuable, more popular titles that they could get higher dollar amounts for what they would sell from Amazon.
On the reconsideration, under this policy is written, the first round, if someone fills out everything, they live in the city. By the way, thank you. I think a high bar is really important, so we can't just be targeted by agenda, social media movements. But with the first round, would you be deciding unilaterally what to do with an item suggested for reconsideration? It says that you'll review the request and respond in writing.
Yeah, I would probably just have like a team of staff that would discuss it with me. I also kind of anticipate having a conversation with the submitter, at least by phone, to ask some follow-up questions too. And to sort of, sometimes when you can just explain more thoroughly a collection policy, how we go about deciding what we include and the purpose of broad collection. Some people you will often say, oh, that makes a lot more sense to me. I understand a little bit better that you're trying to represent all different types of people in the community. And even though I don't have an interest in this book, or I don't want my child to, I do have the right to limit, what my family checks out. We did have some discussion about including a clause that directs parent, like just informs people that parents are responsible for what their children choose, not the public library staff. We did not include that at this time, because we're not trying to be controversial about our policy, but, that's something we would, or like we would say is that that's the expectation, is that the parent is in charge of what their child chooses. They can choose what their child checks out or doesn't check out. That's their right as a parent to restrict their child's access, but they can't restrict the access for others. And that's,
Yeah, I mean, I just hope it would be a super high bar and that, that if it were decided unilaterally at the staff level, that it would be something where just everybody agreed, like, oh geez, we shouldn't have gotten it. So, you know what I mean? Yeah.
that we didn't necessarily read thorough enough reviews.
Yeah.
And then one of the questions in the reconsideration form is, are there other things that you would suggest that are a counterpoint to this? Would it be more agreeable to know that this title exists when we have this counterpoint to that?
I guess
And that might be how we reach a resolution, is that they're gonna inform us about another perspective so we can keep a balanced collection.
I guess I'm saying I quote most such requests before something has just gotten rid of and come to the board, even though I certainly have no desire to be in the hot seat, but
It just depends on what the item
Yeah.
is, because some things can very clearly meet our selection criteria, serve a broad purpose to the community, and the requester could be obviously just wanting to restrict something because they don't like it. Like if their form and their support for why they don't like something is saying, I just don't like it, I don't think it's good. I'm morally opposed to this. This isn't my religion. Well, it's other people's religion, and we're trying to serve all the different aspects of our community by providing these things. And that's why there's an invitation to have other titles suggested, or is it something like it's in the children's routine section? Maybe this is a little too mature for a 15-year-old. We should put it in the adult collection. You know, those kinds of things I think happen probably fairly frequently, where things might be reclassed from like juvenile to young adult or young adult to adult. With really thoroughly considered. The other thing that would have to happen too, if we have a completed form is, I would have a couple of staff members, we would all need to read the book too. Because I'm not making an uninformed decision either. And, you know, that's one of the questions we ask in the form is, did you read the item?
Yes.
Did you read
Yeah,
the review?
right.
Like, whatever it is that they're objecting to, have they fully consumed it? And if they haven't, what parts have they consumed? So that same kind of criteria would apply to me as a reviewer of the reconsideration, is I have to read the book too.
Right, I guess I would be happy with staff, making a unilateral decision for reclassification, right? If for something to be completely removed, I would hope it would come with it.
If the staff were to decide.
No, I mean, you're right, if the decision was made, like, should we just completely get rid of this book or this item, this material?
Yeah. I have not known any public libraries to uphold a removal of an item per patron request. Almost all items stay retained. More often than not, they might be, like I've never heard of one that's completely removed by a public library. And then but I have heard of them being reclassified into a different section.
You've been in Florida.
Yeah,
I mean, these rooms.
it's close to their libraries now, but yeah.
Schools are so much different than public libraries. There was a public library, a county library in Texas that had items requested to be removed. They were not. They appealed to a local court or county magistrate or something like that. The decision to not remove was upheld. And then the county was then going to discuss disbanding the public library because they didn't want to have those items in the public library. If the library wanted to continue, the library board said, we're gonna continue to keep this in the collection. The judge upheld that decision. And so the county commission said, we might not fund this public library and like disband it because they didn't want the library to keep.
And if we trust you all and agree on the filter that you're choosing things and deselecting things, then we trust you.
Yeah, I feel like if there was a decision to remove an item from the collection, I think that probably would come before this group too, as a this is what's been decided. But I feel like it would have to be a very, very egregious situation.
You're not in the business of removing books from the library, is what
I feel like it would be highly unlikely that we would say, oh, you have to get rid of it. Would have to be a very, very egregious and terrible oversight on our part that we would purchase something that's not appropriate for the collection.
Are you saying you would like it in writing though, that it would come to the board prior to?
If there was gonna be like,
Oh, I'm not hung up on getting it for it, but I would like, I mean, if you were thinking like, man, this book or item just has to go, I would like the board to at least be looped in and you can sign off for it.
probably do that maybe like a little informally.
Yeah,
It wouldn't necessarily be like, we're going to have like, as an agenda item, go over this and discuss it and have you guys go back and forth. It might be something where it might be a little bit informal, kind of outside of the meeting. I don't know if we're allowed to do something like that, but
I wouldn't want it to be a discussion topic at the meeting. I think an informal, like, hey, this is potentially gonna be removed or is removed, and, you know, if you have grand objections, please let us know.
Yeah.
But it opens it up for sort of the pile-on effect with public comment.
Yeah.
If it's like, we are getting rid of this book.
Right.
You-
I almost kind of feel like even if it was like, if I made a decision and said we're gonna keep the book, and the requester is like, I don't like that decision, and they want it to go before the board, I think you guys would still probably discuss it outside of the board meeting, because you wouldn't be able to spend this time doing that back and forth, I don't think, and you'd have to do your own research, you'd need to read the book, and you'd have to do all the things, so.
We'd probably bring it to
And
him.
we would probably.
During the
provide
meeting, but
you
not
a lot of
discuss.
the information for you all to digest and take in, then in the meeting, it would be like a vote on the request.
I have two quick things real quick, just sort of being, sort of runs where we have 10 minutes left of the meeting. One, I think, well. Well, yes, but you don't want to keep it there all night. I think, one, I think you run into some ADA violations if you don't make this electronically available, so we may want to check with the attorney on that.
It will be,
Okay.
the form is electronically available, it's just you don't submit it electronically.
Okay, I think you may need to have like, if they're homebound or
The
something.
city attorney has, the city attorney's office has reviewed all of this for us.
Great. Yeah, I think this is really good, and just wanted to say, yeah, I think the thought in this is great. I think not highlighting this is probably better than not, because it's just sort of, there are online groups that are just sort of very active with it. But I do think that it is helpful to have this detail of a policy, and really kudos to the group.
And to be clear, we haven't had any challenges or requests or anything like that. There's been discussion among library directors in the state about does having a policy and a form invite people to use it? I really don't think that. I think if we don't have it, we're in a worse scenario if somebody does bring forth something, because we don't have anything to guide us. So I think we're better off having something to provide guidance and that we can turn to should something arise.
And whether you have a policy or not, it's not gonna keep people from coming after you if they really want to. And the second thing,
People have time.
I agree that, this gives you a very thoughtful way to push back on it if you don't agree with their request. So I think this was well done.
I just want to see, should we be voting on each of these individually?
I think so. That's why I sort of
Okay.
did them.
You can, I was gonna say you could do it as a,
Yeah,
As a-
it's
as a group. together.
And we can go through them all and then you can decide, one of them has a problem, let's vote on these.
Okay.
Yeah.
Together, if we think we're gonna vote yes on it, and like this one, we're gonna say no for right now, we're not gonna include that one, because we wanna see further work. I think.
Yeah, make it
whatever
easier
works.
altogether.
It's easier just to go one by one for the interest of time. And then it's,
Yeah, I mean, my recommendation would be, if someone has one they want to pull out for an individual vote, we could do that, or we could do it as a block vote. I'm fine either way. But
unless there's. I'd like to move to approve the collection development.
Second that.
All right, all in favor? Any opposed? Great.
So the next one is the donation policy. We did decide to make this separate from collection development because we will collect donations in a kind of separate, method. So this just basically outlines, that we'll review donated materials, being the collection criteria, and sometimes we will add items to our collection. The donations can be a great source of replacement copies for things that are worn out, or items that we just didn't, or we want additional copies, whatever. So we'll use the selection criteria to decide what donations we'll add to the collection. And that all donations become property of the library. And again, not necessarily added to the collection. And then if they're not added, they would be subjected to the disposal of deselected materials. So that kind of outlines in the collection development policy that those will be donated to nonprofit agencies, recycled or sold. And then that items that we were looking for in donations would include fiction and nonfiction of hardcover or paperback books for children, teens, and adults. And yeah, fiction and nonfiction, foreign language items, large print items, and classic titles. For media and magazines, we'll accept music CDs, audiobook CDs, DVDs and recent magazines. We don't want to accept textbooks, encyclopedias, or dictionaries. Books discarded by other libraries, you wouldn't be surprised how often that happens. People buy stuff at one used bookstore or one like library book sale and donate it to another library. All fine. So we want to try to discourage people from giving us those kinds of things, because those are the things that are automatically going to go into our kind of discard pile or recycle pile. Outdated reference books, audio cassettes or VHS tapes, we do not want. We don't want abridged audiobooks, CDs. And we don't want damaged, incomplete, or moldy materials.
Could this be an opportunity with the unaccepted materials to point people towards the Historical Preservation Society? If like, maybe you could have a clause saying, if you feel like you have something, there's another group that.
So that last little sentence just says, if you have rare historical or local interest of or value, please refer to the local history collection development policy. Because that policy is mostly going to be driven by donations. So we don't purchase items to put in there because you can't. Because the whole point of the archive is to have locally donated. But if I think if somebody came in and said, I have this rare set of things, we might, that's again, like people come in with like a 1956 fully, intact encyclopedia set. We don't want that. We really don't want people's like years worth of National Geographics, even though they're super cool. They're just a really painful thing to try to unload. So we actually pared down the non-accepted items thing, because there were some things that we put in there that were like, well, maybe we would take that, because there are some libraries that don't want to take like vinyl records. But that's kind of like having a resurgence of popularity. So like those might be a fun thing to take. So we're not necessarily saying we want those things, but we're not saying we won't take them. So there was a few things that we kind of dropped off because we're like, we probably would take those, but we're not going to try to ask for them. But I think if someone came to us something that was rare and historical, we would either direct them to Historic Englewood, or we would have them consider donating something to the archive.
I think the only thing I would define here is what is recent magazines, just to like.
So we didn't want to say that
Okay.
either. We just, because we were saying in the not accepted, we said magazines older than 1 year. But then we were talking about how sometimes we have people who want to like take recycled magazines and they use them for projects or whatever, and the children's department uses them. So we were like, we're just gonna say recent, and then like, we'll decide what we would put in a book sale. And if there's something that's 5 years old, that's gonna go to the section. Yeah, because we also, like, the other thing that happens with accepting donations is, and Christina and I have talked about this, you have people clearing out, grandma's attic of all her old books, and they can't bring themselves to throw them out, so they'll donate them to the library, but they're all absolute garbage.
Yeah.
And so like, we will be that person to put in the garbage for recycling.
Yeah.
Because that's just what's gonna happen, because there's so many people that are like, I don't wanna let go of this.
Yeah.
They work so hard to collect these things, or whatever it is, so we kind of are prepared to be that middle.
I have two quick questions. Well, one, I think on your website, probably not the policy, I think this is really well done, but I would put like pictures, like, don't bring this.
Yeah.
For the love of God.
Intend to create a graphic based on.
Like, please, yeah, please.
Back.
And is there any concern for like bed bug books or, like meth contamination books, like any sort of like health, like health related stuff you want to put in here?
I don't know that we could get that specific with it, if we even really want to, like, again, we don't want damaged. And we could probably even say like dirty or, just things that are like, smell like smoke and stuff like that. But, that also, some people don't know that those things smell because that's their surrounding. If they have like heavily like cigarette smoke smell in them, and those kinds of things are always gonna probably go into recycling. And so that's another reason that the volunteers will help store things, and then they'll kind of have some instruction and criteria for like, this is no good. And then we also will have a step where the staff review things, because the staff will say, this we could put in the collection, this could go in the collection. maybe we even pull some things to go in our summer reading prizes because they're in such good condition. So those are other ways that the donations could be used. Any other questions on this one?
I'll move to approve this one.
All in favor? For consideration. Okay, so this is the form that ties back into the main collection development policy and that last section, reconsideration of materials. This is where that link will come to this form. And it does kind of, in a more abridged way, it gives the process for completing the form. And that the Englewood Public Library values the opinions of all community members. If you wish to request the library consider the removal or reclassification of an Englewood Public Library item, please complete this form in its entirety and return to a library staff member. I do want to point out the reason we said an Englewood Public Library item is because we bring in so many materials that we request from our member libraries in Marmot. We don't want people to say, my child requested this and checked it out, and I want to, have you consider it for removal. Well, we don't actually own that title, because if we don't have the title in our collection as something that we own, I can't make decisions for materials that belong to another library. So we made a point of making that distinction. Please complete the form in its entirety, return to a library secretary. I just said that. You must be a City of Englewood resident, include your name and contact information. Your request will be submitted to the library and cultural arts manager for review. Manager will contact you within 30 days of the date of your request is received. So the first part is their name, phone number, address, email, whether they're representing just themselves or if they're filling this form out on behalf of an organization. What the item of concern is, like type of format, and then the questions about the item include, did you review here the entire work? If not, what parts? If none, why not? What brought this item to your attention? What is objectionable or offensive? Please provide specific examples, including listing pages or sections attached to the needed. Have you read any published reviews of this item? Are there resources you recommend that provide additional information for another viewpoint on this topic? What action are you requesting the library consider? How would this action improve the library service to the community? And then they have to sign it, and then when the staff member sees it, they would also sign it. So this was, yeah, I mean, there is a level of work that has to be put into this, because if it was just like, here's a slip of paper, you should remove this, anybody could do that. So we want to make sure that the people who are asking for this are doing it in a thoughtful way. And that it is specific for the community members. We've learned that from other libraries around the country, that they've really started to hone in on, you have to be a member of our community if you're going to request something removed from our community library. This was formatted through kind of a template that's provided by the American Library Association, as well as actually in place forms of several libraries in the state of Colorado, as well as around the country.
Was there any consideration of adding a notice to it?
I actually have to find out a little bit more about that. There is actually a legal proceeding going on, I believe it's in Gunnison County, regarding the like request for the name of the person that filled out a reconsideration form. Like an ongoing legal battle, and we continue to get updated on it. It's actually much more difficult to understand than I would have expected, but from what I've read, that's what it was about, that there was a core request for who submitted it. And the person who submitted it says that they should remain anonymous. Please, Clark?
Records don't say it.
Yeah.
We know what it is, yeah. We get them all the time. Have you ever been involved with at least one of those? Colorado.
This is something that would be subject to Hotta, like we have to, and that's sort of what this ongoing lawsuit is about, is to like determine will names on these types of forms remain anonymous, or is it public? Which, I mean, I think it should be public record. So I think as of right now, it's considered public record, but as this lawsuit goes on, it could change or it could be upheld as public.
Yeah, it just, I wonder if it should be on there as a, because I think it probably is, I think that lawsuit will work, I think it's gonna be public record.
Yeah.
So I just wonder if there should be a core notice, like, remember, you found a public record.
Is that all because of what was requested to be removed?
For that particular lawsuit.
Yes, yeah.
I honestly don't know, because it's been going on for a couple of years now, so like it started before I even came out here, so that's why I was really kind of trying to catch up with understanding what that situation was. But it's supposedly like sort of coming to an end. They think that they'll have sort of a decision soon. Is what I got from like the last update, because we get kind of regular updates. I can provide some more information as a follow-up.
Yeah, I mean, when I read this, it just, since I filed court requests all the freaking time, I just noticed the lack of that.
Yeah, that would be something that I probably would like follow up in the city attorney's office and like direct them to this
Sure.
case, because it's in appeal court right now, that it is Gunnison County Library District. It's an ongoing case with the Crested Bee.
And it's a Crested View use that.
Yeah, so the case,
Removal?
yeah, well,
No,
they wanted to know who the person was, I guess, and then,
Did they say what the request was for?
please ask the Court of Appeals to consider the public nature of request for reconsideration forms under Hotta. Oral arguments are currently scheduled for the last week of July.
Sure, we could figure it out.
Yeah, like, I mean, it's a kind of.
I don't know if you need to research that right now.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, I would be totally willing to just accept the attorney's advice.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. I'd say ask, and if you don't have to put it on there, then I'd leave it off. And if something happens with this case, it's changed. The only thing I would, if you think as, the person who will be receiving all of these, that you'll probably follow up with a phone call every time, you might want to just add a member of our staff may contact you. That would honestly,
Okay.
if I knew someone was gonna call me to follow up, I'd be like, I think I.
Answer the phone, no.
So just to, you don't have to have that, but that's a suggestion. If that's what you think you're gonna be doing. For them to be clear to know that somebody might be calling.
Yeah, yeah, and I guess I kind of,
Emphasize like with your.
At the end, it says, the progress or decision.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think Tamara would be the person to decide, but the reason I would suggest having the Cora notice is so that people don't feel tricked if their request is Cora, so they don't feel, okay, wait a minute, but how did this happen?
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you would think though, if you're submitting stuff to a public entity, I don't know, because yeah, I think what happened was a community member submitted a request for reconsideration and a news outlet requested, like Court requested.
Right.
Submission. Just like what Scott would do.
Yeah.
How he's gonna submit a court request.
Obviously, they're patron in that case, because it didn't anticipate.
I do think that putting the progress or decision part at the beginning,
Okay,
just cover your stuff.
okay.
That makes it much better. Because I also was like, how are you actually gonna handle all of these in 30 days if they're in the nation?
I mean,
reading all this.
And like, that's the other thing, like, manage your expectations. We're not gonna get a lot of things. If I got one a year, that would be a lot.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in the 13 years I was at Henderson Libraries, I never received one. So. We had a lot of conversations with people, and a lot of times that's all it takes is having a conversation, explaining why we have certain things in the library. And examples of like these two things balance each other out with different, viewpoints and stuff like that. Sometimes that's all it takes for people to really think more deeply about what a public library collection is meant to be.
Well, down this outside of County Line Road, there's a group working each branch, trying to get a couple of folks taken out.
Yeah. There's a lot more on the western slope of challenges that are way more prevalent in that region of the state than in the Denver.
I mean,
Yeah. Well, do you want to hold off on this one till we make a couple additions and we can revisit this one next month? If you'd like to have me make a couple of edits, consult with the restrictions when we back to that one. Right.
Move on to the historic archive collections.
So this one is, it's specific to historic items that would be donated to, the archive collection and like what the focus is of that collection. So it's much more about, the history of current or former residents of Englewood, things that they have, that they would like to share and have preserved, for, future research and things like that. And that the types of materials we'd be looking for are, so the things that would be books, could include directories like city, business, school, church, or club rosters, and telephone books, books about people and the history of Englewood, books by local authors, particularly of local or regional interest. So if it's like a local author writing about the immediate area. And then books that take place in this local setting. Newspapers, that are, physical or microfilm, photographs, so actual printed photographs, negatives, slides, postcards, sketches. And a lot of that stuff would be candidates for digital archives as well. Clippings, ephemera, and memorabilia. So a couple of examples that were included there were, things from the Chamber of Commerce, different advertisements, catalogs of local merchants, clippings from newspapers. Ephemera consists of materials that are produced to be used once and thrown away. So that might be like a concert program, handbills, announcements, or posters, manuscripts, and memorabilia, maps, narratives or films. So that's like recordings and things like that, collections of items, and then scrapbooks. And then like some of the things we don't want awards, plaques, trophies, or ribbons. We don't want national newspapers. Large objects or physical artifacts, items that are not connected to Englewood's history or residents, items without any context, moldy or severely damaged items, items with stipulations unable to transfer copyright or ownership, donor requests to restrict access to the materials, or has other stipulations for future use. We actually have a situation right now where there were donated materials under a prior agreement that allowed the donor to remove the materials from the archive. So we're honoring the original agreement with the stipulation that should you want to return these items to the archives, you have to follow our. So that group has been provided this preliminary document, so that they understand what the restrictions would be, because they return the items, because it's not standard for archive items to be taken out of the archive. So, and the other thing with that agreement was that the city attorney office said it's binding, you can honor it, but it's definitely outside of the scope of the kind of criteria that we would currently use for creating contracts or agreements. So, and then other personal information, and then, genealogical materials. Except when it's very specific to Englewood. Questions? This one I will also state that was drafted and researched by our library associate, Caitlin Dugas, who has her master's of library science and specialized in archival work.
It's very thorough.
Yeah.
Like, that was one of the things I learned about. I was like, I don't even know what that word is. I looked it up. And for Marriott, did everyone know this? And I'm the only one that doesn't. I didn't know how to pronounce it. Anyway,
Camera?
yes, I was like, what is this word? But no, it's excellent.
Yeah, so we're definitely very lucky to have her and working very hard to solidify an archivist position at some point in the next few years. So that this archive continues to flourish and grow. But she's done a really good job of organizing things and making it accessible. Any friends on this one?
It's good to go.
I'll move to approve the historic archive collection development policy.
Oh,
All in favor?
I,
Any opposed? All right. The collection deed of account.
So this one is basically sort of like the acknowledgement that a person is donating their item to the library archive, that it is now, it will not be the library property. And that, that the conditions of the donation include that it's irreversible, that, and I think this, we have it specific in here too about they can't take it out. That wasn't the first part. And outlines of its tax deductible, but that we don't define the value, and that goes for any of the donations we'll get. Just like for the regular donations, we'll have a donation receipt. People can determine what they believe is the value of their donation. So then they would fill this out, and we would keep a copy and then provide it to them. It's sort of as a donation receipt to the archive.
The only thing I would suggest is to make it one page.
I know, I've been trying to work on the spacing and stuff like that, because I think that we just need to take out the lines and just say add an additional document if
Yeah.
necessary, and then have that so that you can write that on the back or
Yeah.
something.
Well, either that or just change the word.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, so
Upper
that's
and
what I've been
lower
just trying to work with. Changing that, but I was running into some major formatting problems, and that's what I almost feel like, because it's gone through so many iterations, that I just have to retype it in a new.
Send it to me.
Okay, so that.
I'll help you.
That was how do I get this on one page? It's kind of like,
I send something.
Yeah,
to me too.
It's my.
Wizard.
Do you do budgets? The end of the fiscal year, you know.
Damn.
I probably.
Holy good Christina.
see Debbie perk up when we started talking about policy. He loves that.
Yeah.
All right. Bad for this one. All right. Pending formatting.
I'll move to approve.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. First. And
I'll
second,
second.
thank you.
All in favor?
Okay.
Any opposed? Okay. All right. One more.
the last one is the archives use agreement. And again, this has been reviewed by the state attorney's office. There's a little bit of wording that they guidance is on. So it essentially it outlines how they can use the materials from the archive. They have to be assisted by a staff member. There's only a specific area where they'll be designated to look at the materials. If required, we'll provide gloves if we think that they need to use them to handle the material. And that the materials may not be removed. And that, you know, people are bringing in bags or briefcases, that the library does reserve the right to search those briefcases to make sure that nothing gets like snuck out of the archive. And that they can use photographs of the material, like they can photograph the materials from the archive, but they have to credit it as coming from the Englewood Public Library archive. And so we have actually used this once already, where we had, a couple come in that wanted to look at these scrapbooks. Those are the ones that are kind of under the current agreement with the Englewood High School former band director. Oh, wait, you were in the band? No, you just went to Englewood High School.
I was
Or you were in the band. So yeah, Dr. Girardi, he has these great scrapbooks. They're fantastic. I hope he'll decide to donate them back. But they're going to be taking them out to use at a reunion this summer for the Englewood High School band. Cool.
Steal it. So go and steal them back. Just drop them back. Be like, sorry, they're here forever.
I'm going just to get the books and bring them back.
I heard that. Right there.
And they,
There.
Yeah, there's some space, there's some random spaces. There's some good, anything else coming up?
Same thing, and I think some of it had to do with the edits that were made, because this is still like a version of the edited one, and like, we really have a few different iterations of this document. So this one might be one we just have to re-edit a little bit to get, I don't know why it's like, I tried fixing it. I even tried to, yeah, I don't know what happened.
And I'll move to approve the Englewood Historic Archive researcher.
Oh, no.
I'll second.
You take the second.
Sorry, all in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Just.
All right, this is like a comprehensive collection of policies that direct our library collective. Great.
It's so great.
So it's really supposed to run together.
Can I ask for future sort of big document dumps for us that we break it up a little bit? Just so we can really digest it and give you good feedback.
The next couple policies that we gonna be a little shorter, but I think we're gonna be doing 2 and then 1. So they won't be, there won't be as many. These just were kind of all related.
Absolutely.
So, but yeah, the next, we only have 3 more policies, 3 or 4 more policies to get through. Then they should all be updated.
Any old business? All right, staff's choice. What happened in the Chamber of Commerce?
Yeah, didn't something cool happen?
Where's the I like loved. No.
I need to celebrate better.
I know, I mean,
I think I shared it on LinkedIn, that's what. Well, I did that, but, no, yeah, so we did win the, Greater Englewood Chamber of Commerce Innovation and Sustainability
For
Award.
2022.
Congratulations. I guess you're right, they didn't, no, I didn't realize
Yeah,
that.
they haven't done anything.
They did have a videographer there and they were taking pictures, so maybe it's worked.
Okay. Yeah.
20,
Up by second. I feel like that happened so long ago.
It was months ago. It was like 3 weeks ago.
It was, I guess it was after the board meeting. It's just brain for so many days. It feels like 2 months ago. Yeah, so we had that.
And I'll quickly just add, we have a lot of events over the summer, tons happening this month in June. Adult Night at Parrots Cove is tomorrow night. If you're interested, no kids will be in the park. We will not have alcohol. License didn't work out, so, but you get the park to yourself, no kids. Thursday is Neighborhood Nights at Bellevue Park. And then on the 24th of this month, we have Kids Stage and a movie, which is DC League of Super Pets. I haven't seen it yet, so I can't give any reviews. That's at Duncan Park on the 24th.
Then the music events start up in July.
In July, every Thursday is out here at concerts. We'll have happy hour before.
When the Pirates go.
Yeah, I saw some of you there. Thanks for coming to that.
Any good rain, 1 drop the whole. Yeah.
I've got like 2 raindrops as I was leaving.
We might not be able to answer this question since Chelsea's not here, but do we know if we got any other board members from the interviews that happened yesterday?
It looks like Chris Ray, a guy named Chris Ray. They're not answering.
We haven't received any information yet.
We probably will in the next few days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, frankly, heard Yanni today. It wasn't working. last night.
Would
No.
that, would that start in July?
Probably be, well, July or August. It depends on when the oath or when council does a resolution to appoint them.
Alright.
So, and then when the meeting falls.
July, so Andy can really-
Set all the bad examples. Right from the start.
I will be on an air
Where's your commitment? They have Wi-Fi.
with 2 children. I will not that like. All right, school board, any?
Nothing, I can't wait till next month. School year's over.
Okay.
Last bit of the school year was fantastic. So you go, one of those events too. But I'll have some updates for you next month on whether we probably will have made a decision if we're gonna go out to the middle levy or not, and then superintendent transition and then reflection. So
I would like to say that while I have your attention, if you are going for the mill levy, I would love for you to take direction on bond presentation to the community from the Parks Bond, because they are presenting that. on social media. So,
yes, and if we do that, we will also have consultants to help us with
Good.
getting that message.
And our finance departments are all talking, so.
Good.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll have lots more. That's great. That's
Good. It is 8:27. Thank you, everyone. For hanging in tonight, and we're adjourned.